Did you know? It's a fun fact time. We'll come back to the conversation around the levy, but fun fact time. Did you know there are an estimated 1,700 native bee species in Australia? It is World Bee Day. You might have already known that. Bees are pretty popular. Maybe you've even tried to help out some of the native species around with bee hotels that they can shelter in. Where you get that bee hotel from and what it looks like really matters. I want you to meet Clancy Lester. Originally from Numurkah, he actually runs native bee hotel workshops. In fact, he's setting up for one right now. Clancy, a very happy World Bee Day to you, mate.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on this morning on World Bee Day.
What does a good native bee hotel look like?
A native bee hotel looks like as close to the natural environment in which they nest in. So things like pithy flower stems and bamboo and reeds for the cavity nesting bees, or drilling holes into native hardwood like eucalyptus for the bees that nest inside the holes of wood boring grubs and beetles, and then also a good mixture of clay and sand inside bricks like Besser blocks for the species that nest inside the ground.
So do bees use them? Like, what do they actually do with these hotels if you're setting them up properly?
Yeah, so like you were saying before, out of those 1,700 estimated bee species, only about 11 of those actually live in hives and make honey. So a lot of our native bees are actually solitary, and that's where these bee hotels will get used up by the females, which will make a nest all by themselves, or maybe with the help of an older sister or another mum. And yeah, they'll use these as more like nurseries rather than bee hotels to lay their babies and collect the pollen to make a stash of food for when the egg hatches.
So, Clancy, I keep hearing about sort of the many bee hotels I could go and buy that just are not suitable for native bees. How do I tell the difference?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I've made the mistake of mentioning names of brands before, but
we're not doing that. Please don't. Yes, no, thank you.
But unfortunately, if it's commercially available, it's most likely used treated materials, or it's been made overseas so that they can make an extra buck or two, which results in it being fumigated at customs. So they get loaded with arsenic and chromium and different toxic metals and insecticides, which obviously is great for biosecurity, but we're buying these off the shelf thinking we're going to be doing the native bees in our backyard some good, and just providing a death trap, really.
This is good to know that it's around that toxin as much as anything, and good thing to know that we can avoid it as well. Clancy, there's been a huge kind of push, like, let's save our bees, but that seems to be very focused on our honeybee populations. Are natives in any way benefiting from that goodwill?
Well, it's at least we're getting insects under the spotlight a little bit, and bees themselves. But yeah, you're right. It has been worrying for the agricultural side of things, and for the managed populations of those European honeybees with varroa mite coming in and affecting them. But yeah, that's not something that affects native bees, but they're just as vulnerable with the last 20 or 30 years of unregulated use of insecticides and pesticides, and as well as the land clearing and all the other different threats that a lot of animals like bees face. So we do have to look after them especially.
Why do you think that we, as Australians, don't give enough attention to our native bee population?
I'd probably say because their main role is just being a part of the ecosystem and pollinating our native plants, and they're just sort of like little unsung heroes. They don't. It's not like they're as good at pollinating our crops, or they're not like a cute little fluffy koala or anything like that. But yeah, they're just as important as any other animal.
Clancy, how did you get excited about native bees? What was your pathway to becoming the native bee hotel expert that you're on your way to being?
Yeah, so I was really lucky to go up into northeast Arnhem Land to look at native bees with the Yolngu people up there, the local First Nations people up there, and it was just so special to see that they're a part of the culture, and they're just so important for First Nations people and the ecosystem up there, and that sort of lit the fire in my belly to want to spread the love about native bees, and also the fact that they're declining and they're facing some real alarming threats, and we need to look after them however we can.
Well, we'll talk about a bit of the work you've done, but I've actually had a text in from Sandy just saying, can Clancy kind of clarify the importance of the length of holes when it comes to a bee hotel?
Yeah, so this is one of the things with the commercial bee hotels. They're quite often flawed with the design as well, and so they're quite often too shallow, because having a deeper hole, so longer than 10 centimeters in depth, will actually be better, because the females will lay both male and female, because what they usually do is they'll start by laying a few females, and if they've got enough room, they'll worry about laying a male. But if it's too shallow, they won't bother.
Right.
Because males aren't as important in the bee world.
Sandy, I think that's what you were asking about, and I hope that's answered your question on that. Clancy, Lester, I should say you were part of this year's ABC Trailblazer program, obviously looking at young people living in regional communities achieving great things, which you are doing. But what have you been up to since that sort of program?
Yeah, so since that program, I've been, whatever community and regional and rural schools that reach out to me, I'll pop down and say hello, and give the kids a chance to hear from a fellow country kid that's gone off to the big smoke to, do some really cool research and become a scientist, and just give back to the sort of the community spirit and growing up in country Victoria, and it's been super rewarding so far. So I'm really thankful for that Trailblazers program to give back to regional schools.
Oh, well, we're thankful for the work you do, mate. But I mentioned, of course, you're setting up for a workshop right now. What's the plan for today?
Well, today is absolutely going gangbusters today. It's World Bee Day, so I've got a few of these people, like interviews, and I've got a few workshops on, bit of social media posting and stuff to do. Just spreading the love for native bees wherever I can.
And just a final question, Nathan in Wodonga saying, is Clancy got a website we can look at where we can get a bit more info on how to build these native bee hotels ourselves? Yeah,
I sure do, Nathan. It's my social media handle is @beesandblossoms.oz. And then I've also do have a website called nativebeehotels.com. So if you want to run out to get me in for a workshop, or want to learn how to build native bee hotels, or just any random facts about native bees, I've got heaps of them. So
nativebeehotels.com.au, was it, or .com?
Just .com, yep.
Just .com. Mate, have a good one today. Thank you for having a chat on a World Bee Day. Clancy Lester, as I said, ABC Trailblazer, came through that program originally from Numurkah. He's running these native bee hotel workshops. You can find out more on his social media or his website as well. And that was a really interesting little point, that the store-bought ones, if they're imported, they've been fumigated, they can be toxic. It could be 2 years for those chemicals to end up wearing off.